Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokémon card collecting podcast, featuring David Person, owner of the world's most complete English Pokémon card collection, and Dan Norton, a longtime collector with all the knowledge behind the cards.
Hey everyone, how is it going? Welcome back. Welcome to another Koffee Talks with me, Dan, and of course David. David, how has your week been?
Dan, the only way that I ever know it's actually Sunday is you coming on with that initial, greeting, and me then determining that I'm only one day away from going back to real life, buddy. And it's not happy. It's not a good thing. There's too much going on. There's always too much going on. But yeah, thanks for asking. I always appreciate your consideration, your kindness, and the fact that you've got like a canned line to get us going in every single podcast we do.
Yeah, always works. I mean, I'm guessing
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I got nothing. How was your week, buddy?
My week wasn't too bad. I've had the weekend to myself, because Laura is away at Pittsburgh. She's working the regionals there. I think she's on deck check this weekend. She actually ended up traveling, was it Thursday morning? Thursday night, something like that. I ended up having to drop her off at a friend's place, and she went up, so I've had a few days at home on my own.
Dan, when Laura does a deck check at a regional event like that, does that mean, like, does she take pleasure in slapping the hands of people who have the incorrect cards and duplicates and fake cards and just basically ruining their dreams before the tournament even begins?
Well, she doesn't take any pleasure in it, and she isn't the one who actually hands out the punishments. If she does the deck check, she has to then go to one of the head judges or floor judges and bring up the issues, explain to them what's wrong with the deck or with the deck list, and they'll hand out the appropriate punishment to the players.
Yeah, but it all starts with her. So, I mean, have you guys ever thought of getting more security at your home in case she ends up, dodging someone's dreams and they come after her or something at some point?
I mean, I think that's the least of our worries for Pokemon players coming to our home because they've got annoyed at one of us.
All right, good. I'm glad. It seems like you've thought it out, Dan. That's the most important thing. And I know you did something else this week, Dan. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or in this case, the raving flamingo. I saw a post, and I was able to see that there's a tremendous degree of pinkness in your hair.
There is, and I cut the sides off.
Do you guys fight about it before it begins when it comes to the color selection? I mean, does she say, "Look, we're doing blue for sure," and you're like pink, and then somebody comes up with a lavender, like, and then you guys go to small pieces of paper and a hat and try to figure out the ultimate color? What happens, Dan? How does it work out?
Well, Laura didn't even pick her new hair color until we were actually at the hairdressers. She just pulled a picture of a Penny from Pokemon on her phone and asked the hairdresser if they could do that, and they could. And I'd said beforehand that I wanted a pink mohawk. I need to get some proper actual styling gel to put this up into a point so that it actually looks like a mohawk. But you can see it is all the way down the back, and the sides are completely gone. So the ideal is that it will be fully spiky at some point, but it also makes it harder to wear headphones when it's fully spiky. So we'll see how it goes.
I don't think I've ever seen a pink mohawk before, Dan. I'm going to say usually they're going to be black or something that's going to be typically very, angry looking. And yours is really like, hey, let's just sit down and have some soft, tea and crumpets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll see how it looks when it's spiked up. Maybe it'll be more intimidating, but probably not.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
All right. Well, yeah, that's been my week. You ready to get into some comments?
I think we should.
Let's take a look at your comments.
Okay, we had some great responses to last week's episode. I think a lot of people were really, really excited to see those cards that you got, those Cosmos Foil and Disco Foil printings of base set. So first few comments we have are from Shadowless Jack. Jack says, "Let's go, and this show is top tier."
Thank you, Shadowless Jack. I mean, I know you know that I wouldn't exist at this point without your tremendously value-driven bodyguard services, so I appreciate that. Thank you for being the one of the handful that continue to watch on a regular basis.
Yeah. Speaking of having to get security at your house in case people find out where you live, thanks, Shadowless Jack.
Yes, because you will have to go through him, and I've talked to the guy, I've met the guy, I've respected the guy, I stalked the guy. You don't want to be involved with the guy.
Next up, we have Ponga Collectibles says, "Commenting because David pressured me to." Well, I'm glad you're pressuring people to comment.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about that, Ponga. I feel real bad. I mean, once I read that, I almost didn't sleep probably for 30 minutes after that, an extra 30 minutes before I went to bed. So I thought it would be longer, but it didn't bother me that much. Ponga, it's I think you've taught me a valuable lesson. I don't think I'm caring enough for our audience, for our viewers. And so, for the rest of you that are watching, thanks to Panga's wonderful comment, I want you to feel no pressure to comment anymore. I would actually like to ask of you that you never put another comment on one of our podcasts, and I'll feel better. Panga will feel better. Dan isn't going to feel so great, but it is what it is.
Amazing. So just we're fully backtracking on all the progress we've made with the getting the podcast out there. No,
Well, blame
everyone
that on
comment.
Panga.
Everyone tell a friend.
Yes.
Tell 2 friends. Then we'll actually grow. Anyway, next we have Steve Jackson. Says, thank you for your insight. Another great show.
Yeah, Steve's one of a kind. He's working behind the scenes frivolously to try to build his collection. He might even have another comment in here somewhere. I don't even know.
Maybe. Cyber X Collection says, such an awesome story. Thank you for sharing, guys.
You're very welcome. Thank you for giving us an audience to share with. We appreciate that.
Then we have Pokemon Gifts says, hearing David say he loves me just made my year. Please don't ever stop this amazing duo.
That was a wonderful comment, except I hated it. Well, why would I hate it? Something so wonderful a comment? Because my wife saw it, Pokemon Gifts. And she's like, you've never said that to me in 30 years of marriage. So I still love you, maybe not quite as much because of the heck that you put me through with your wonderful comment, but my pleasure in the moment to make you feel good and then cause me a week's worth of pain.
Great. Great way to interact with our audience, Dave. All right, next up we have a bit of a longer comment now saying from Zemia Minder. I think that's how you say that. Damn, that takes a lot of nerves to fully cut up both sheets. Crazy that you even got 10s out of them. For you to end up with a complete set of both holo patterns is amazing. I would have done the same. The seller will probably make more money selling the spare sets, but that would not bother me. Good for him. What matters is that you now have 2 complete and unique holo sets in your collection without having to spend over 300,000 in auctions and without the hassle of cutting them yourself. Happy for you.
Yeah, this was a fantastic comment. And this was the comment that let me know that at least one of you watched the entire podcast. And that doesn't happen very often. I know I can only get through about 8. My record so far is 82%. I measure it by the minutes involved in me watching versus the total length of the podcast. So this was a fantastic comment. And I really appreciate the detail and how much you watched and how much you perceived. And I thank you very much for it.
Yeah, and some of those cards, we did see a few auctions this week for some of those extra cards, and 300k might be undervaluing them in how much you would have had to pay for those 2 sets. I think it was one of the Charizards ended at least over 100,000.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that, so I may as well throw that in now because especially we had a comment that actually asked for us to talk about this as well. So when we get there, I'll kind of throw it in. But
Yeah.
well, I mean, we'll have thrown it in. So thank you for that comment too. So the auctions were very interesting. There was some stuff going on. I think it was Golden this week, and what was so interesting about it is there was almost a full flip of what I would have projected, and I think others might have projected between the Cosmos and the Disco hollow foils. I would have believed, and if you listen to the discussions on rarities of this stuff, that the Cosmos are more rare than the Discos. But when you look at the final auction prices, the Cosmos Charizard only went for $30,000. That was a 9, CGC 9, I believe. And the Disco Charizard, a CGC 8, went for $114,000. So almost just a complete reversal of what we would have thought, or something much more close.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give you an idea of some of these other cards. So there was also a Cosmos, couple of cards, a Mewtwo and a Gyarados that both went for about 6,000 each. Those were 9s. So I'll talk about what that means in a minute. And on the Discos, the Venusaur went for about 13,500. These were all 8s. and the Alakazam 9,000 and the Poliwrath about 4,800. So, so a couple things. Number one, other than the reversal of how they went, that was surprising, and also they really didn't sell for very much. I mean, if you look at the Mewtwo and the Gyarados in nines, those are very reasonable prices, as well as the Charizard. And I guess what my comment would be is this stuff is really still very, very much in its infancy. We talked last week about how few people really understand that these variants are out there, and it takes time for it to get out there. And a lot of people don't even come across them, much less collect them for a few years. So based on the supply of these things, which run in the 10, 15, 20 total copies that might even be known about, or even ones that have been cut so far, which are more like 10, of each of them. They're extremely and exceedingly rare. Whoever bought that Charizard for 30,000 is going to wake up 10 years from now and going to be absolutely amazed at what that card's going to have done, I believe. So keep your eyes on these auctions. Sometimes you might be able to steal a card that really you could end up being the pinnacle of your collection down the line, and you just got lucky because you were ahead of the game instead of behind it, as I always refer with me personally.
Yeah, some definitely surprising numbers, but some very good numbers on some of the cards.
Yeah, for sure.
Next comment from NP Pokemon says, "What an amazing buy and story on the sheet. Must have been an insane rush."
A complete and total rush, to say the least. I tried to indicate last week that I was sort of trying to make sure I got all the facts for you guys in there, and so I felt like I wasn't seemingly excited enough. But and sometimes I'm running so fast I don't appreciate the moment. But yeah, I'll look back someday when I can't remember all of this, and it's going to be a wonderful rush that I wish that I'd still be able to remember, but it was certainly forgotten.
Next comment from Dan at Catchmore Collectibles said, "I am glad I guessed Jamboree for the insight and getting to see the image I had never seen before of that Jolteon mock-up. I was picturing fully fledged printed card, e.g. various Shadowless Disco test prints or something of that nature." Yeah, as far as we know, Jamboree never got past the very, very early design mock-up stage. They never got to the point of actually printing any Jamboree cards. That card that I showed, along with a couple of others, if you go to matebodesign.com/Jamboree, there's a guy there who did interviews with a lot of people at WotC, did quite a nice article on the Jamboree cards, and I think that mock-up that he got, those all came from Mike Boozer, who used to work at WotC, so there's a bit more information on the Jamboree cards there. I'll put the link in the description for that, but they did never get around to actually printing anything even close to looking like a Pokemon card for Jamboree.
Yeah, and it must have been nice, Mr. Catch 'em All Collectibles, that Dan decided to catch the ones you wanted to see and throw them in there. I'm begging every week for him to throw a few more pics of anything I'm talking about in there, and he completely refuses. So congratulations. I'm glad the podcast could meet your needs.
I get a lot of photos in there.
All right, fine.
Dan left another comment to say, "I'm too broke to have an opinion on the prices paid for those sets. I am too broke to have them in my wants list too. Nice pickups, congrats. Wish some video was taken of the cutting. It sounds interesting." And he says the standard, if both parties are happy, it sounds like a win all round, so nothing negative to say there. Yeah, the cutting of the sheets definitely sounds like an interesting process, but I'm guessing it was, I know you alluded to having NDAs and privacy things, so I imagine that's why there was no video of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there really couldn't be. That is part of the non-disclosure arrangement that was put in place. But the good news, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Mr. Dan, is here's what you do. Every podcast now, you're incented to make a comment. That was a very kind comment. In fact, two of them. Thank you. Put in anything you'd like to see. Just talk about something you'd like to see. Make it completely irrelevant to the podcast, and I'm sure Dan will show it for you.
Great, more work for me. Excellent. Next, we have Your Average Player. It says, "Huge congratulations, insane acquirement. The amount and detail laid down here is priceless. On the topic of a good purchase, I'm unsure. This is the point of the lowest population, so maybe the highest they'll ever be, but with a rise in demand, supply might not be enough."
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, that was a good whole-ish perspective on all of this. I think that I believe because of the lack of awareness that the demand will ultimately increase substantially over time. I think Pokemon is doing everything they can to continue to increase the visibility of the franchise. So we'll see about all that. But yeah, it's exciting, and it was exciting, and I'm always appreciative of your comments when you're watching what Dan and I are doing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's not likely that the supply of these cards will increase, possibly at all, unless another sheet's cut. But there's unlikely to be a significant rise in population.
Right,
I
that's
couldn't
correct.
imagine there being more than a handful of sheets unknown about out there, if any more even come to market. It's not like there's going to be thousands of these sheets floating around somewhere.
Yeah, people are smart, and at the end of the day, we all realize. I mean, a lot of I guess there's a handful that don't realize, but this is still cardboard. And so when you can turn a piece of cardboard into 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever, or even much more, think about that Cosmo sheet as a 250,000. It's an incentive for almost everything to finally come out of the weeds and be shown. So yeah, for sure.
Next comment we have Craig says, fantastic insight into the worlds of trades and purchases that I couldn't even dream of making myself. The highest value purchases I will eventually need to make myself are the Championship Arena, Pop Espeon and Umbreon, and Tropical/Festival promos. So if either of you have any spares, I would be happy to come down and wash your cars, mow your lawns, wash your dishes, etc. to bring the prices down. I now do wish I had spares of those because my lawn really needs mowing soon.
Yeah, and my dishes need washing as well. Why would my dishes? I don't. I basically I like to wash dishes. No, I don't. Let me just say that I don't like to wash. I don't even like going in the kitchen unless I'm eating. And so my wife encourages the use of paper plates so that she doesn't have to do the washing of the dishes. But like, I don't even know if they're biodegradable. So I'm not a big fan of paper plates because then they go in the garbage and there's more garbage. And so just another thing that you fight about after 30 years. And but I'm so glad that your average player and Craig, enjoyed the podcast. And I do have some tropical festivals or whatever those are. Contact me and I'll give you a deal or whatever. It doesn't matter. And then but tell a friend. Why don't you guys tell? These are good podcasts. I mean, despite me being on them, Dan says sometimes some interesting things. Tell someone, please. Okay.
All right. Yeah, so Craig, message Dave and he'll see what he has for you that you can possibly work out a deal or even a payment plan or something on.
Good. Like that.
Yeah. Next up, we have Poke Power Ups says that story was fascinating. Always interested in hearing those behind the scenes details. The deal was definitely a win-win.
Yeah, I did try to share in the deal all of the details. I thought that might be interesting for folks that typically would just not ever hear that stuff. Folks are reluctant to reveal. It was in no way was I trying to illustrate, oh gosh, all this or that or whatever. I was just trying to sort of lay it all out for you guys, so you have something that maybe would get passed around and people talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And I thought it might be unique and interesting. Sure, my clickbait picture wasn't great. So I guess that made it uninteresting. Okay, if you don't clickbait, the content doesn't matter. It just matters what it looks like on the picture. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that with you guys. I'm not doing that, Dan. I'm not doing that with these guys.
All right.
If I've done it in the past, I'd like to apologize.
Yeah. I like that you've messaged me multiple times just saying we need to do whatever we can to make sure everyone clicks on this and gets it watched. And then you're like, I'm not going to do the thing to get people to click on it.
I would never. Dan, please, you stop talking and go on to another comment.
Yeah. I have to get people to click on it. You're just here.
Yes.
All right. Next comment, we have Professor Birch says, to answer David, I'm not the voice actor for Professor Birch in the anime. My last name is Birch with a U. With Pokemon frowning upon people using their IP in their social media handles, I figured using my own name was a safe option and a nod to the lore of Pokemon.
Yeah, so Professor Birch, number one, thank you. What a great comment. Number two, thank you for clarifying you're not the voice actor and your last name is URCH instead of IRCH. What I love about this comment is it indicates how wonderfully interactive this podcast can be. And I've been hassling Professor Birch for way too long. Okay. It's not okay. I need to apologize profusely. Despite you not being the voice actor, I love you no less. And I think you're safe because of the URCH, but I don't think you understand how hard Pokemon is coming after people. They've now indicated that it's not just the word Pokemon, it's any character or any spelling that would be likened or indicated to be very similar to characters. So BURCH, even though it is your actual last name, you are not safe. I'm telling you now, look at my eyes. This is a serious thing. You are not safe. run and hide. But I love the interactive part of this because this is what it is. If you guys are watching us, even if I won't talk to you, Dan will. And it's fun week after week. It's sort of like, we're all besties now. So watch, talk, comment, interact, and we'll all have more fun like we're having right now with Professor Birch, Burch.
All right. Next up, we have Matty. Says, what a fantastic story. Huge congratulations, David. Crazy that you managed to get all of that value for such a great deal. I expected you to don a disco suit to honor the disco hollows, so slightly let down there, but at least you wore the t-shirt I gifted you, so I'll let that one slide. And he's put hashtag bring back trainer deck AOB. I don't know if you have that prepped for this week, but maybe it'll be back.
Yeah, Maddie, I didn't like your comment at all. I've got to rank it as the least favorite comment of the week. It bothered me in all aspects, and honestly, I asked Dan if we could ban you. He said no, and he actually turned it against me and said you need to be more appreciative of Maddie for all he's done with you, for you in your life. And he also gifted you a shirt. So I brought back Trainer A or B deck for you this week just because I felt bad and my attitude was not kind enough towards you. And Dan set me straight. So yeah, we're gonna do Trainer A deck or B just for you.
Yeah, Matty is one of like the 6 people who actually subscribe to my Patreon and actually give me money for this content, so we're definitely not banning Matty.
Yes, no, fair enough. My mistake, Maddie. I forgot about the financial incentive Dan has to keep you over me.
Yeah. Next comment we have, it says it's from Cubicles Punk Rock, but I know it's from a guy called Joshua that we've both been speaking to a bit recently. It says, I'll be sad if David will not feature next episode the card he gets from me. Awesome show as always. I don't think it'll be next episode, but that card will definitely be featured at some point in the future, Joshua.
Well, Dan, next episode was supposed to be this episode, as you're well aware. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, Josh's card did not quite get here, although with an estimated delivery of not yesterday, Friday, today is Sunday. DHL does not deliver in the United States on the weekend. So card is supposed to get to me tomorrow. Because I didn't wait at my house the entire day on Friday for the card to come in. Yeah, that was a good use of time. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that, Josh. No, I'm very appreciative of you sending the card. So I'm going to wait at my house entirely tomorrow. The day will be wasted away again while I just continue to wait for Josh's card that he'd like me to show you guys at some point when it gets here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
That card and some others like it will definitely be having a special podcast dedicated to them at some point. It's just when we finish locking up some deals and some discussions.
All right, Dan, thank you for planning everything out so I don't have to.
Yeah. All right, few more comments. Next one is from Gerald Rowland. Says, love the sets that you've obtained. This is something that most of us will never see in person. Great podcast, and congrats on the acquisition and trade, David.
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. Appreciate it very much.
And then final comments are from Noob is Back. Said that uncut sheet is way cooler than any individual cards. Makes no sense to think that the individual card value could be worth more cut compared to that full sheet. Either the sheets are way overvalued or the individual cards are way overvalued. I think that the idea of the individual cards that are cut being worth more than a sheet, I think there's 2 things to it. One is that there are not that many people who can safely store or display a sheet. It's a lot harder to keep a sheet nice, have it displayed or framed somewhere. And the second is that once you cut the cards, there's, 8 possible full sets. I think Cosmos Sheets maybe had 8 full sets or something like that of the 15 different hollows. 8 people coming together are going to have a higher budget than one person buying one item. You can always get it. So if someone just wants one copy of the cards, their budget, they're still going to be paying less for one copy of the cards than they would for the uncut sheet. But it's just that you're splitting that value between so many different people that the increased budget is possible.
Yeah, I agree completely, Dan. That really is what it comes down to. It's that you can piece it out amongst more buyers, as well as the fact that if you were to think about it, there are many more buyers who buy the individual cards than uncut sheets.
Yeah.
So there's also a higher demand category as well. So you're piecing out, and there's more buyers, and so because of that, that's why cutting them up ends up producing a much higher barometer of value. When you then add in even a third category, like on the disco sheets, which is that there's those partial prints, which can now get cut up because one single partial print on the sheet or 8 on the sheet, there's no real difference. It just means there's partial prints on the sheet. But now you cut that up and you look at piecing that out to many different buyers, and it does really add up to quite a bit more money in the individual card values.
Yeah, I have one uncut sheet myself. I have the most common one. I have the Fossil Hollows, but this room that I have, even though I have a full room dedicated to trading cards, which most people aren't going to have, I could at maximum fit 2, 3 more sheets in here if I was buying sheets. It's very, very difficult to have all of them where I can fit way more cards and binders and stuff in.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, are the comments done?
Yes, that was the last comments.
Well, I don't think that's right, Dan. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to make sure it gets pointed out because I'm not happy right now. I didn't hear anything from Darafin Draws.
She's busy. She's at regionals.
Oh, so she was busy the whole week and she couldn't watch the thing the whole week and she couldn't watch it since you posted on Tuesday or Wednesday? You tell your wife that if I'm going to do this for her family so we can put food on her dog's tables, that she needs to spend 5 minutes writing a comment. She can watch it in 4 times speed if she needs to, and then write a stinking one-line comment just because. I'm not, no. But I'm here, right? I'm not busy. I'm sitting here. Okay, I got a little started early on my rant this week. Never mind.
Yeah, I'll tell her.
Okay.
I don't remember what we were doing on Sunday. Something happened Sunday where she wasn't at work like she normally would be. I don't think anyway.
Last Sunday?
Yeah, last Sunday.
I think you guys are probably sleeping, Dan. You're still recovering, as far as I recall.
Yeah, something like that. She normally listens to it at work and then
Okay.
comments, before we
I got
record. But yeah, I'll yell at her when she gets home or when I have to go pick her up tonight.
Okay, good. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Maybe she can, listen to it when she's driving in a car sometime or something like that. So
Yeah, I'm sure that the people she's driving with will be very happy about that.
maybe we can indoctrinate to them. They can finally
Yeah.
get in, and we can get some other, parishioners. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell her she has to put last week's episode on in the car when she's driving back from Pittsburgh with people.
That's what we want to hear. Thank you. That's a good idea.
All right, so the comments are done. Does that mean you do have a trainer deck A or B ready to go?
I want you to do the drawings thing now.
The drawing thing?
Yeah,
We didn't set a competition.
You don't have to set a competition. I want to just talk about it for 2 minutes.
Okay.
So as you guys know, in the last several weeks, we haven't been doing our drawings or giveaways, mainly because either I'm cheap or Dan's lazy or Dan's cheap or I'm lazy or things fell by the wayside. Dan went to Worlds. Laura didn't look at our. There's just so much going on. But here's what I want to do. I am so interested in you guys trying to help us increase the viewership of the podcast. But David, stop begging enough. I know. I told you guys in the last couple of podcasts that there's only a few of you who actually will even be what we call referrers. It's just nothing wrong with that. That's just the nature of the beast when you're dealing with personalities. But what I'd like to suggest is for anybody that might post our videos in their groups, in their forums, think about the average person looking at our podcast, about a 28-year-old young man. So, maybe you've got other groups that appeal to that demographic, and it could be, the people that shoot at the gun range or archery or snake collectors or just anything in Pokemon related. If you would slide into my DMs and say, I want you to know that I posted it there, and we'll be able to tell by just a smidge of increase in viewership, or I might be able to tell by more people following me on Instagram or whatever, like I typically see when there's a surge and somebody's watched something.
Or they can screenshot it.
What? Yeah, you can screenshot it
somewhere. They can screenshot that they've done it.
Yes, exactly. That's a great idea, and that's why Dan is smarter than me and has more pinkish hair. So I'd love to send you something for anything like that. And one of the things that I think is I've looked at a few of the podcasts out there. I don't watch that many. I think some are really good, but I think this one is I'm a little biased, is really, really good. It's informative. It's meant to be a bit entertaining. You get Dan on this podcast. You don't get Dan on any other podcast. So Dan Norton, by the way, the guy with the pink mohawk hair. And so anything you guys can do like that, I would be glad to reward with a special gift of some kind. And I'll try. The more generous you are, the more generous I'm going to be, because I think that the world is built on generosity these days. So just know that, and that's what I want to do. So stay in touch, post something, put it somewhere, tell me about it, and that's how I'm going to reward people going forward. At the moment, from a drawing perspective. Dan, you've got some other ideas, don't you, my friend?
Yeah, slightly to expand on what you just said, if people don't have places that they can post it, a good way to actually increase the eyes on the podcast a little bit. Every week I post in Burbank City, one of the biggest Pokemon groups on Facebook. It's a bit of a toxic place sometimes, but it's definitely got a lot of people and a lot of really nice people in there. If you see it in there, if you're in that group, comment on the post I make as well as commenting on the video. It actually does keep the video near the top of people's feeds and gets more eyes on it. So if you don't have a good place you can post it, that's another way you can actually help with the podcast. What I'm also thinking is we're at a point now where there are so many new cards and stuff that we didn't know about before coming out of the woodwork. There's a lot with a lot of cards coming out, there's a lot of chance of stuff getting missed. And we both try and keep on top of it. That's not true. I try and keep on top of it, and I tell David what he needs to buy. But there are going to be times where my information or any research I can do is a little bit lacking. So in some future episodes, there may be a chance where I'm going to mention a card or mention something where I just need some information, and we will post bounties for that information. It'll be whoever can get us what we're looking for will also get some sort of reward. We don't have that this week, but that's something we're looking at doing for the future. I think it's a bit more fun and a bit more interesting than, just sending Dave a random number every week.
And I think what we want to emphasize on that is you don't necessarily have to obtain the card for us. You would just get us information that would lead to an arrest in the case. That would be that's what I mean, guys. Lead to the acquisition, but it's sort of like the reward for somebody who commits a crime. In this case, the crime of letting me buy someone's cards. And then Dan, can I go back to the first thing we said? It also might be a way, and again, I'm not Mr. Social Media because at 62, I went off it like 10 years ago. But Dan, people can also repost our story, right? I mean, I know a lot of folks are kind enough to like our stories, but they also have the ability to repost our story to communities and people in their circle as well, correct?
Yeah, that's an Instagram thing, reposting stories. We do get a couple of people doing it.
Okay.
It's
So,
not
I mean,
something
that's
no one
always
does.
interesting. If you thought, hey, this is really unique, this thing they did about in the acquisition of the two sets and all the detail, you could just take one of those to be reposted that people really say, gosh, that's something different that we haven't seen in podcasts yet. So listen, we don't care. First and foremost, low expectations. If you guys are watching, that's what we're most appreciative of. But these are just other ways we're trying to come up with to try to increase our audience base.
Yeah, because my wife is telling me I have to get a real job because this makes no money, and I don't want to get a real job.
Yeah, it'd be tough for you to get a real job with the hair at this point, Dan. So
It
just want
would.
to point that out. Okay.
It absolutely would.
Yes.
Just the pink mohawk and all the tattoos. There will be some places that would not want me because of that.
No. You may want to work somewhere where you're outside. We have to move to a cold weather place where hats are on at all times and large, bulky coats.
I just have to find somewhere where I work from home.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to move on to Trainer Deck A or B then?
Yes, let's do it.
It's time to play Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B.
All right, guys, I brought it back for Maddie, if for not anybody else. I know Maddie may be the only one that watches it, so the rest of you can just hang in for the time. It's been a while, Trainer Deck A, Trainer Deck B, where I asked Dan to pick from a series of options, typically two. There could be more. Dan has to justify his selection or not say a word at all. I don't really care. He's got a total of 10 seconds to make his selection. Should he choose to go on any longer than that, a Pokemon judge will magically appear, and at that point, he will probably be disqualified from at least the remainder of the single question that I've asked him. I can't disqualify him from further participation because there would be no segment left. Dan, let's go. Trainer Deck A or B. Ready? Here we go.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, Dan, dubious or impervious?
Let's go dubious.
Yeah, and one thing you guys are going to find, for those of you that might be new to the podcast, if Dan doesn't know what he's going to select, he'll always select the very first of the two options. All right, good job, Dan. Thanks for being consistent as usual. Dan, superstition or repetition?
Repetition, because I don't believe in superstitions that much.
And so if you do something wrong, you're just going to keep doing it over and over again, Dan, repeating the same thing.
No, I'm just not going to think it was because I saw a cat earlier.
Did you see a cat earlier, Dan?
I actually didn't know. And it would have
Okay.
to be a black cat. I think that's the superstition. Or that I walked under a ladder or something. Actually, no, I'm going to go back on that. The walking under a ladder thing isn't a superstition. It's just a good idea. Just don't walk under ladders. That one I'm not putting down to a superstition. That one is just actual health and safety. But black cats and stepping on cracks and stuff, I'm not going to attribute bad luck to that.
Well, it looks like Dan's got his next career move planned out. It's going to be safety in numbers. All right, Dan, tennis or pickleball?
Tennis, I actually really enjoy. I enjoy watching the tennis sometimes. I watch Andy Murray play occasionally.
Okay. So you don't play tennis or pickleball?
No, I don't really know what pickleball is, but I don't play any sports at all because I'm the least active person in the world.
Okay. I love Dan. Dan, my thing that I wish I could do more than anything right now is just play tennis. I love playing tennis. I never have time to even basically drag my legs out there. So, Dan, lake or river?
River. I like going down to the rivers sometimes. We have a few nice rivers in Ohio. We have the Great Lakes are up at the top of Ohio, but those are a few hours drive away. But we have some rivers running through Ohio, and back in England, we'd go and see some of the natural waterfalls and stuff around in the northeast where I lived, which were all from rivers and stuff. So,
You ever go fishing in a lake or river, Dan?
I mean, as a kid, just going fishing, but never anywhere where there were actually fish to catch. Just being a kid screwing around with a fishing rod.
That's sad. Dan, I think this is the reason that more people should watch the podcast. We've really got to build up your friendship base. Dan, a Hershey's chocolate kiss or a Hershey's chocolate nugget?
Neither, because Hershey's is horrid. I really hate Hershey's chocolate. I hate most American chocolate because there's no sugar in it, but Hershey's in particular I really don't like.
You know, it's sad. It's sad how difficult it's been for you to escape your UK roots. And through the entire first 5 or 6 selections that I've offered, it just keeps surfacing. You know, as I was a kid and back in the UK and the chocolate. Dan, are you a US citizen at this point?
No, I'm not. I'm a legal permanent resident.
Yeah, well, your residency ought to be questioned, and you are clearly not a US citizen at this point. Dan, and I'm sure there'll be a UK reference near, but chicken or hen, buddy?
Chicken, I suppose.
Yes, of course. When you don't know, pick the first one. Dan, red velvet or triple chocolate?
Triple chocolate. I can't really eat either of those cakes because they will have dairy in them, but if I'm going to put myself through intense stomach pain, it's going to be for triple chocolate.
All right, fair enough. I know there won't be any Hershey's baked into the triple chocolate, so that's good news
Nope.
for you.
All Cadbury's with extra added sugar if it's American Cadbury's.
Cadbury's, boy. Easter, I know what his favorite holiday is. Easter bunny's coming. Dan, battle decks or theme decks?
Theme decks. I actually used to really like the theme decks it did for each set. I get that the battle decks are a lot better for players who are actually starting out. They're a bit more advanced. They give you better stuff than the theme decks did. And, you know, they come with a Black Star promo as opposed to just a variant. But I did personally always like the theme decks.
Collector's tins or collector's chests?
Tins, because the chests have had a lot of issues with damaged promos in them. Just the like triangle bit in the top of the chest that holds the promos in damages the promos a lot more than the tins do. You know, the older tins damage promos quite a lot, but the newer tins have actually been really good about having better packaging for not damaging the cards. But the chests you do still get quite a lot of damage promos out of, which I'm not a fan of.
That's got to be the saddest thing in the world that after all this time, no one in packaging has figured how to rectify that. I mean, I remember years ago when they had to figure out how to secure the cards inside behind the plastic and you would have to get them out and they would get damaged. So kind of crazy. All right. Collector's tins or collection boxes?
Um, It's a difficult one because the collection boxes, I think some are better than tins and some are worse than tins. It really depends on just the eye appeal of the boxes. I think some of the boxes look really, really nice when you're seeing them, and some of them just look, you know, lazy. It's just a random jumbo with a few packs in. Overall, I guess I'd have to go for tins, even though some boxes do look better.
Then our summary one is collection boxes or collector chests.
Collection boxes, I think, because again, even though some of the older ones would damage the promos, I think the newer collection boxes at least have nicer ways of holding the promos in without damaging them.
I'm going to see if I can get you like a consulting position with the company, maybe to work on, so that you'll eventually have an, every customer will like them equally. Dan, regionals or internationals?
Internationals. I think we've had this question before because oh no, we've had internationals or worlds as a question before. Yeah, internationals I think is definitely a better one because it's a bigger event. It's not just about the tournament. Regionals is pretty much just a tournament. I like going to them even if I'm not playing. Hanging out, seeing people, and looking at vendors and stuff. But internationals is an actual event with pop-up stores and interesting things to do.
Okay, Dan, I will never repeat a question, not because I can remember what I've asked you before, but because of the random nature of the way that my brain works. Dan, Paldea Evolved or Obsidian Flames?
I'll go Obsidian Flames. I actually have quite liked the set. Even though it is just a Charizard set, there's a lot of really, really nice stuff in there that isn't just the Charizards. There's some very, very nice artwork in that one. Paldea Revolt has some nice artwork too, but I guess that's losing points for me just because of how big the set is and how much I'm still missing. Whereas with Obsidian, we're actually getting pretty close to finishing it.
It's hard for me to believe that you could be missing anything with as many podcasts as you've done in opening up Paldea Evolved material. I think that I think that what my latest count was like you're at 23 podcasts so far of just Paldea Evolved material. So, my suggestion, Dan, is maybe buy some singles and stop opening stuff. Okay.
We are at that point. We've stopped opening. We are just now trading for the singles and stuff. And when we're doing the card shows, I'm trying to take singles in. I have a card show coming up at the end of this month, which I'm hoping to try and buy and trade for some of the stuff we're missing from those 3 sets.
Do you know it's potentially possible, statistical likely at this point, that you and Laura may be the first people to ever declare bankruptcy based solely on Pokemon card purchases?
There's no way we're the first people to do that. If we did that, there must be some other people who've done that before.
No. It's because you guys are so far over the top that you've actually fallen down the other side of the mountain. Dan, Smoliv or Doliv?
Smoliv? They're pretty similar.
I always love it when it crescendos up to the question mark.
Yeah.
Dan, Cubchoo or Bless You?
Cubchoo. Cubchoo is a very cute Pokemon, and I hope Laura listens to this episode because she can start drawing some Bless You merch to go with her tummy nut that she was drawing.
All right. Bless you, Dan, for that answer. Yeah. Dan, Dynamo, or Catch a Tiger by the Toe?
We'll go with Dynamo.
Fair enough, Dan. Dan, Grandpa or Drampa?
Drampa. Because, I don't know, Drampa's a cool looking dragon thing, and I've never called any of my grandparents Grandpa before.
What do you call them, Dan?
So I had one granddad that was Granddad, and then my other granddad, because his name was John, we called him John Boy, like from the Waltons.
So most people don't know the Waltons, but I guess maybe it's a UK thing that you guys watched it a couple of decades after.
I didn't know the origin of it at all. It was just something that he wanted to be called, and I mean, I say wanted to be. We still call him that now, even though we're all in our late 20s and 30s now. But it's something he wanted to be called, and he said it. And it was only years later that I found out it was because of a TV show.
But it's a very important and iconic TV show. So do you and Laura, before you go to bed, say like out loud where the neighbors can hear it, like, good night, Dan boy, and good night, Laura girl. Like, do you guys actually say it out loud to each other, like the show?
No. Laura goes, I'm going to bed. Are you going to bed? And I'll go, no, and then probably swear at her, something I can't say on this podcast without bleeping it, and then make her go to bed so I can do some work.
All right, good. Well,
that's how it goes in our house.
So just like every typical marriage.
Yeah.
Dan, letter of encouragement or letter of recommendation?
Letter of recommendation, because people need to recommend me for stuff, probably.
Dan, that's one of the few times you haven't selected something that said it's a Pokemon. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for varying your answers just a smidge.
Yeah,
Dan, pink hair or pink nails?
both.
No, you can't pick both. You have to pick one.
All right, pink nails, because at least it's easier. I can do it myself.
All right, fair enough. And Dan, I want you to know that specifically for you today, I wore this pink shirt.
There we go.
Okay, I wanted to match perfectly. Dan, last but not least, Champions Festival or Paradise Resort?
I'm actually liking Paradise Resort a little bit. I think it's a very funny card, just with how bad they made it, and the fact it references Psyduck directly, with Psyduck having been on all the world's promos. So I'll go with Paradise Resort.
Okay. All right, Dan. Good. Thank you for playing Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B today. I appreciate it. It's nice to have you back.
And now for our highlighted cards of the week.
Okay, so for our main highlighted card section this week, we are still working on some of those deals from Worlds, so we're not ready to share the full stories on those yet, but because we've been keeping you guys waiting on that, we're going to talk about some other purchases that David made, which we maybe weren't going to talk about until I actually got to David's to give them to him, but there are a couple that I've still got here, but we'll talk about them now. So first, there was a few podcasts ago where we talked about David was missing a card, saw it on eBay, and then the next day I drove like a 4-hour round trip to go and pick it up from someone in Northern Ohio. We got the purchase made just overnight. That card was the champion stamped double colorless energy from the Latin America Internationals back in 2016, the first season of Internationals, so the first set of Champions Internationals, and this was the only time that the Latin America one was ever actually in English. So this will be the only Latin America champion that David ever wants to get, because they've all been in Portuguese since then. So David, tell us a little bit about the card. How did you realize you were missing it?
Dan, I can't answer this at all, but I so appreciate you throwing the podcast to me when I have
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to say. But you know what, Dan? Let me throw it right back to you,
Okay.
because what you said was interesting, and it's this particular year, if it was 2017 or whatever it is, and this particular set, which is, what set are these from, that if you're trying to make a master set, Dan?
They're from Evolutions.
Okay. So this has been one of the most flabbergasting, flummoxing set I've ever dealt with. There are like these four different, which you're going to talk about here in a second, four different sets of cards, like North America or Oceania or whatever you're going to say, I believe, that you have to get to have a full master set. And that's just been years of trying to look at and trying to understand, and what's Europe, and how does Europe differ from international, or are they the same? And then there was like a follow-up year when they all of a sudden turned into the same or something. So if you could talk a little bit about this and how this whole, you mentioned, you know, basically suggested here that this was the kind of one and only American or English version Latin American cards, but
Yeah.
maybe you can go through the four different variants and why it has been so difficult for me to find this card. Boy, it's amazing how when it turned up, it was just hours away from you in a
Yeah.
drive, which was the craziest thing ever. And I will say right now that, if you might remember from a previous podcast, to those who are listening, that we jumped on the opportunity and were just able to get it before someone else got it, who was working on that exact same master set. By the way, that's the only master set he's working on. So it was just such a blessing. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so there were four different internationals throughout the year. We're actually now dropping to 3 going forward from this season, because Oceania is no longer getting in internationals. But the 4 different internationals are Europe, Latin America, North America, and Oceania. This was the first year that they had these, was when they did the double colorless energy. And the reason you mentioned the Europe one being weird is Europe was the first internationals, and the symbol that's on the card, you get tournament cards, they will always have the symbol for regionals or whatever is on them. The Europe one just said internationals, or intercontinentals, it maybe was called at the time. So they were given out. Obviously, there were 6 champion cards given out. Then the rest of the top 8 got the top 8 ones. There were staff plays, etc. But people weren't really going for them that much, because they were like, okay, well, there's 4 internationals coming up, so the 1 of 6 champion is going to be 1 of 24, because it says internationals. And then it was either Oceania or the Latin America one. I don't remember which order they came in, but the next one came out, and that had, either Oceania or Latin America in place of the international. So that was at the point where it became clear there were now going to be 4 variants. It was just that the Europe one didn't say Europe. And that, I think, just threw a lot of people. And because it was this huge shift in tournament promos, we talked last week about that for you, it used to be that Worlds was the only big money spending weekend of the year, really. Other than that, it was just picking up sets and promos and stuff that came out. The 2016 season is when that all changed, and we weren't expecting it when the first internationals happened, and through that first season we just weren't as on top of it as we could have been, because it was a complete surprise. It was a complete change of scene. Obviously now we try and get in touch with winners and stuff at internationals as soon as they happen. I'm at NAIC. Unfortunately this year they didn't actually give them out. They either were mailing them or gave them out at Worlds. And we have Ruben, our good friend, out in Europe. And well, we don't have to worry about Oceania now, but we've had people in Oceania before, just keeping an eye out for us. But back then, that was just, we couldn't anticipate that, and you picked up as much as you could. It was just this Latin America one you just were missing, and it was just one that you didn't get. And at that time did signal like a huge shift for Pokemon, because not only was it the first season that did that, that was when Pokemon Go came out. So that was when there was a huge surge in popularity in collecting Pokemon. So things were being thrown up all over the place. Prices were rising on different things, especially vintage stuff. It's the fact that there was more people looking at stuff. It meant there was a lot going on, and both of us just missed the fact that you hadn't got this champion one. I guess our record keeping for your stuff wasn't as good as it is now. We now have much better idea of what you're still missing. And it just ended up we were pretty lucky with it, with the purchase, because you had obviously 3 out of the 4 champions, and it was my friend John. People will know him as Thundermoo, who I've known John for a little while. We've been to a few different events and stuff together. I've seen him around, and obviously I knew him because he lived in Ohio, and he was trying to master set evolutions as well, and he also managed to get 3 out of the 4 champions. It just so happened that the one he was missing was a different one to the one you were missing. But he had said recently that he was trying to make some more money for some bigger purchases, some other things he was buying, and just he needed money for other stuff in his personal life as well. So he had the 3 champions, and he had them graded, and his North America champion was in a 10, and his Latin America, and I think it was the internationals one he had rather than I think he was missing the Oceania. The other 2 were in 8, so he decided to sell those. And he had the North America one on his eBay for a long time, but with a $100,000 price tag or whatever, just kind of like an advertising thing, like people do. They'll put one high-end item there that they're not intending to sell, so they put it at a much higher price. And then it was the international one, I believe he then put up and sold. Like as we were having this discussion, it was as we were trying to figure out what you were missing. He put that one up and it sold, and then he put the Latin America one up, and I had been about to message him anyway because I was pretty sure he had it. And then we saw it on his eBay, so we jumped on it and we said, like, can we buy this? How much is it going to cost us to get this now? We arranged a price, and he had said the person who bought the international was also wanting to buy this one, but because they just bought the international, I think was trying to do a payment plan and stuff, which was what helped us get it. And I think it was just another one where we hit such good luck. Like, if me and you had waited another 2 weeks to do your spreadsheet and figure out which IC cards you were still missing, it probably would have been gone. And honestly, he had, like I said, he had the 2 8s. If he had put the Latin America one up first rather than the international one, then that other guy just straight up buys the Latin America and then is trying to make a payment plan on the international, which you already had. It just fell so much in our favor. Like, all of the pieces fell into place that we were able to get that card.
And here's what's ironic. The guy that we ended up sort of buying it ahead of, he had bought one of those champion cards from me. I think maybe the North American champion card from my eBay or website or something. So because I had an extra of that one, so
Yeah,
that's how funny that all kind of circled together. So yeah,
yeah,
that's a great story. And I had created a spreadsheet a long time ago when it was the first. I remember it was about 25,000 Pokemon cards at the time, and there was only about 4 or 5 cards I didn't have of the first 25,000, including master set variants and stuff. And those were a few of them from the Latin America of that year. So,
yeah,
so this was yeah, very exciting and very very happy to have that kind of done now. So
yeah. Next time I come over to your place, I think we're planning on me coming out for a little bit longer, and we're going to fully go through master sets, just make sure we know exactly what you're missing from everything.
yeah, and I have a lot of catching up to do from the current era now.
Yeah,
The last 2 or 3 years, but prior to that, things are pretty nifty.
yeah.
And yeah, so and I think you've got another card to share today as well, correct?
Yes, there's another one that, again, this is one which I don't currently have in my hands for you, but Laura has it because this is a card we picked up for you in Pittsburgh. She's out. I say, as people see this podcast, it'll be back. But as we're recording it, Laura is starting Pittsburgh with it. We teased Worlds promos a bit. We're going to talk about those when you do finish making deals. But you did just pick up the number 3 trainer from 2022, which was the last trophy you were missing from that year and the final trophy card you were missing for all years previous to 2023. Like we
Hey,
say,
let's stop
2023
there.
is,
Let's stop there because that's pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't like to toot my own horn because most of the time my horn is broken. And tooting to me means something very different than what's coming out of my actual mouth, right? When you think about it.
yeah,
So, but yes, that was really now prior to 2023. I now can say, based on all of your work and my money, that I own all the trophy cards all the way through every single trophy card ever made through the end of 2022.
yeah,
So thank you for all the help, Dan, for sure. Thank you to Laura. If she gets mugged on the way home, next podcast will be filled with tears from both of us.
yeah,
Um, and um, and so you're going to talk about this, I hope. But I did look last night, and I want to say that out of the 6 people that won a number 3 placement in the World Championships in 2022, either in TCG or VGC, video or trading card games, only 2 of those were from the United States. And one of them was a junior winner, which to me means very young. And junior winners, when they're very young, very rarely sell. Parents and them, often the parents, because these kids are more mature, will turn to the kids and say, "Do you want to sell?" Or
yeah,
they say, "You can't sell." But if they ask the kid if they want to sell, the kid's like, "No, I don't want to sell."
yeah,
And so, because of course there's no value to money, whether or not you're very young like that or you're Dan and Laura. So here we are, and now we have one of the, really, I would call sort of the only one available of the threes, because 4 of the 6 are not US and one of the 6 is a young US. So
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and it depends on what the other countries were, but this was definitely the best connection we had. I think we spoke to a couple of other people who got number 3s that year who were just not interested in selling at all.
Right.
I don't remember if this, I can't remember who we got the number 4 from last year off the top of my head, but I know at least it means your 1, 2, and 3 were video game masters.
Yes, which is so interesting. It's
Yeah,
I mean, one could argue that video game being included in the trophy giveaway situation, the trophy prize cards,
yeah,
doubles the numbers. And therefore, if you're looking from an investment standpoint, which I typically have not, is not the greatest thing for the pricing of the cards. But then you could turn that logic around and say, but now because there's 6 instead of 3, at least the chance of owning one has gone up as
yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And
there was
since I'm
definitely been some years where if they hadn't gone to, if video game players didn't have them, you would either still be missing some or you would have had to shell out a lot more money for them.
correct, and as a collector, I'm very happy to have an additional
Yeah.
opportunities to get them. So yes, it's been really cool.
I mean, the thing as well is with the artwork changing for 2023, it does mean that first full art artwork that ran from 2014 to 2022, it does mean that's now done. It means that that is now a complete set. There's no more years coming to obtain to keep that artwork going. So you now have a complete set of all of the original half arts and a complete set of everything for the first variant of the full art. And then obviously, as we say, we're working on the first year of the second full art, but it's really cool to have that one just done. And I think next time I come visit you, I think we should try and get all the trophies out and take some photos of them together. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, of course. And this discussion reminds me of the fact that they announced that that Worlds next year is in Hawaii. Is it
Yes.
Honolulu, Dan?
Yes, it's on Honolulu because Honolulu, even though it's a much smaller island than the island they held it on the last couple of times, it has a convention center in it, which the Big Island does not.
I see. Okay. So for those of you that are still watching, that continue to watch, that ever have watched this one time, that happened to hear this remark because you just got to this timeline in the table of contents, and here you are. Hey, let us know if you're going to go to Worlds next year. I'm curious. It's certainly a lot easier of a trip, I would think, for those of us in the States. A lot of folks I know that watch us are not in the States as well. But I'd love to hear if you are. I sure hope that this year more than any other we can finally get back 2024, because I've missed it the last couple years, and maybe if I hear enough of us are going, I'll try to host something special there so we can kind of all get together and get a chance to see each other and meet each other as well. So let me know if you're thinking about it, planning on it, starting to think about it, and starting to maybe put a dollar or two away every month to save up for the trip.
Yeah, and I know me and Laura will be going out. It
Yeah,
is just unfortunate. Laura's parents actually used to own a condo that was a 5 minute walk from the convention center, but unfortunately they got rid of it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. And Dan, the way this year has gone with me with spending, there's a good chance I may not be able to afford to go. And normally I would say, can, Stephanie and I just stay with you and Laura in your room? But
Yeah,
based on all the swag that you guys will have selected and purchased at the Pokemon Center there, the kiosk or the pop-up shop or whatever,
yeah.
I don't even think we'd be able to even sleep on the floor, would we, Dan?
No, our room is just always full of stuff. At the very least, this year in Hawaii, we've decided we don't need to do a lot of extra time for tourist stuff because we've been to the island before. We've done most of the tourist stuff there is to do. We're hoping to get a couple of days staying at Aulani, which is there's obviously not a Disney park there, but there's a Disney resort. So we're maybe going to try and get a couple of days at that. We visited it before, but we've never stayed there. So our time in Hawaii might just be a couple of days at the Disney resort and then Worlds and then back home.
Well, for those of the folks that are watching us that have watched previous podcasts, they're going to know, and I'm going to know, you're going to know, unfortunately, Dan, that Laura's going to want your entire itinerary planned out before you go, months before you go. So please be kind to her when she pulls the maps and she says, are we going to do this on day one and this on day four and this on day seven? Because, we know what a planner she is. So,
Oh, she has already been telling me what activities she wants to do at Aulani for we're a year out. We're 11 months out from Worlds. We don't even know the dates of Worlds yet, and she's been telling me what activities she wants to do at Aulani.
old habits die hard. Nice stuff, Dan.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything more to say on those cards? Obviously, we'll have some nice pictures and stuff up for the people who are watching the video version.
Yeah,
Assuming Laura makes it home in one piece.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to say that we will say something next week, regardless, because it could take me a year to continue this pursuit of Worlds cards. And that's what happens. We're a
Yeah.
year later on this 2022 number 3. So, but Dan and I will commit to show you guys at least some of the acquisitions starting next week. So just hang in there, and good things are forthcoming.
Some of the 2023 acquisitions.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we'll get into those next week. I guess does tie a bit nicely into what we were saying last week about how one of your biggest assets to being able to collect these is your patience. The fact that if you're missing something, you still want it a year later, whereas no one else was chasing this card because they only wanted the new one because, like we talked about, it's a social media thing. They need to get their videos and their Instagram stories posted of, I bought this card at the tournament, does so much better than buying it a year later.
I want to thank James. I want to thank James for helping us and for being willing and kind enough to sell me his card. I'm always very honored when someone is willing to do that. They don't have to do that. I want them to feel good about the sale. We talk about that all the time, but definitely, James, very appreciative of you giving me the opportunity to own that card for the collection.
Yep, huge thanks to James. Very, very glad we were able to finish that one off for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. David has a rant coming on.
Well, I guess since we are back on regular sections, that means it's time for your rant. Do you want to do your rant, David?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to rant about today, Dan. I really don't. So
give me a thumbs up when you're done.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to get the gel for you're going to get the gel for the pink hair now and start mohawking the heck out of it halfway through the podcast.
I'm going to go get a drink. I'm going to get a drink is what I'm doing. So give me a thumbs up when you're done.
All right. So guys, listen, here's what's going on. Dan won't ever listen to my rants because he's got to listen to them in the editing process. And Dan is such a positive guy that my rants, he's basically messaged me and said, David, when you're ranting, it actually just throws me off my entire game. I have to up my Adderall prescription. I have to reduce my time in dealing with Laura. I have to basically teach the dogs how to be hunters. It's really bad. But let's forget all that for the moment. Let's just talk about it. You know, what's happening here now, guys, is Pokemon is infiltrating the entirety of my life. And I don't know what to do about it. I really don't. You know, I've got other responsibilities on a daily basis. I've got financial, advisory clients I have to talk to in meetings. I've got eBay listings and shipping I've got to fulfill. I've got basically, inventory I've got to purchase from folks, website, things like that. I'm dealing with my basketball organization, but it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Let's say I'm at the school. Let's say I'm at my son's school. I'm fighting over the fact that nobody gives a heck about the fact that he's autistic and has ADHD. Well, the problem is that I'm not thinking about them. I'm sitting in the meetings with them and I'm thinking about Pokemon, And I noticed last week, we were getting in the middle of a fight. I was kind of in that situation and I was trying to support my son with everything he's going through. And inadvertently, I called the principal of the school I think it was a drillber. I said, you're nothing but a damn drillber. And she looked at me funny and I felt bad and I didn't know what had even popped out of my mouth. And so what's happening is I can't seem to escape the daily influx of Pokemon influence. I mean, last night I was at the grocery store and my wife said, pick up a can of corn. And I'm going down the aisle. And you guys know corn because I think we all buy canned corn all the time. Who buys canned corn anymore? I don't buy canned corn. We buy fresh corn. But if you buy fresh corn, is it regular? Is it organic? Is there such a thing as organic corn? I don't know. And so I asked the produce manager to come over and help me pick it out because I don't go shopping ever. It was just one of these rare situations. My wife was busy. And he's like, I can teach you how you can pick out good corn. And I go, you're such a litwick. I called him a litwick. And I think I was trying to say, maybe you can help me in a nice way, but these things are bursting out. It's almost like I've got, certain like a syndrome now where these things are coming out of my time. And when I'm angry, my boss the other day wasn't amenable to something I was suggesting with my financial advisor. I needed some customer support for my company. And the all I think to do was hit him with a vengeful punch. I'm thinking I'm going to hit him. I'm actually going to smack the guy with a vengeful punch. There's no letters of encouragement coming out of me. I'm going to tell you that right now. So whether or not it's streaming at night, whether or not it's during the day, I could be in the gym, I could be on the treadmill, and somebody's looking at me funny. This old lady. By the way, when you go to a gym with me and I'm on a treadmill, here's what you'll see. I'm going a pace of about 1.4 while I'm walking uphill. There's invariably an 82-year-old lady next to me. She set her walker down and she's standing on the treadmill next to me and she's going about 3.0. And she gives me that glance, all right? She gives me that glance and I'm thinking, you don't know anything. I want to give him a forearm shiver to her because I'm still angry and I'm angry. Sometimes I'm angry because of Pokemon, right? I'm angry because someone didn't sell me their card. They made a promise. What if somebody ripped me off? Albert Swain in the UK. There's so much going on all the time and I've got to deal with it all the time. So the stress, you guys think Pokemon's a great thing, right? Oh, it's a great hobby and it's so fulfilling and everything is great for Uncle Dave. It's not. It's very stressful. I've become angry. I've become an ungrateful. I have become a passionate in the most dispassionate way. I become a passive aggressive kind of guy. I'm at the dermatologist the other day and the guy says that you've got this certain, I've got a toe fungus now. I don't know, whatever. I thought he said fungus. You understand? I don't even hear things. I hear everything from a Pokemon perspective, right? I mean, my wife wants to cuddle up with me at night. She doesn't, but it's part of the story. And I would like her to just, I want to drive her away because all I see is like, if it was, she, to me, she reminds me of Snorlax, just a big old thing sitting there. No, I can't say that because she's going to listen to the podcast. She doesn't listen very often, but just in case she did, that's probably not the right thing. Who's the most beautiful? What is that word? Waif or whatever they call these girls that are the pretty ones on the Pokemon card. She's one of those. Honey, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was saying. So all I want to say is before you guys tell me that this is all gravy and mashed potatoes and cream corn and organic corn, what for me is this is all pressure. And this has gone into my life to the point where right now I can barely breathe. My caffeine intake is so low and my pressure is so high that I need to reverse the two and I maybe just get out of this whole thing. And I'm thinking of leaving the Pokemon hobby. Do you guys understand that? Why would I stay in? Why would I let this do? Do you think my heart can take this at 62 years? I can't take anything. All right. It can't take anything anymore. And you guys are helping it. You're not helping it. What are you guys doing? When have you guys told anybody about what I'm out here doing? Nothing. Does anybody talk? Do you guys refer us to anybody? I'm trying to help pay my bills and Dan's bills. You want Laura to leave him? He doesn't have the headphones on right now. He doesn't know what I'm saying. We can't have Laura leave Dan because he doesn't have a job. No one will support him on his Patreon. I won't. You're going to pay for this content? But maybe we just sort of subtly create something so that I can eventually, you look at me right now and all you guys see is a nose pass, right? That's all I see as well. I can't get past my nose. So a few of you think I look a little bit like Tom Cruise, but that's okay. And I'm about his same height. So I'm done. I'm done ranting. Appreciate what we give you. Appreciate. I don't want to seem like ungrateful. I'll let Dan do that. But appreciate what you give every single week and do something about it, okay? Help me get over this kind of frustration and anger.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. I got it off my chest, Dan. Thank you.
Great.
What cards have our hosts found today?
Alright, so I look forward to hearing whatever that was when I have to edit it. So, next up, we have the Look What I Found section, so we're each picking a random card or a couple of cards from our collections. David, what do you got this week?
Dan, I've alluded to it a couple of times in this podcast. I'm going to pick the Letter of Encouragement card from Obsidian Flames. I don't know the number, Dan. You'll put it on the screen. People will see it.
Yep.
And the only reason I picked that, Dan, is I want people to know that when I'm not ranting and raving like a raving, ranting lunatic, and I'm actually in control of most of my bodily functions other than my bowels. What I'd like to say is that I do try to spend a part of every single day. Thanks, Dan. That's good. Glancing at my phone. David, why would you look at your phone? I try to look at my text messages actually, and I try to make it a point to find at least one person in my life that I just shoot some kind of encouraging message to. Whether or not that's just thank you, I was thinking about you, I appreciate you. I think it's really important when you're talking to people, when you're asking people for anything, to just say, hi, how are you doing? Hope things are going well. I was thinking about you, whatever. So, not necessarily a letter of encouragement, but maybe a saying or a recognition of some kind of encouragement. A lot of people going through a lot of tough times these days. So I certainly liked the idea of that card. I like the picture on the card of the packaging. Looks really positive, like something nice you'd give somebody with a nice message inside.
Cool. It's a nice one to pick. So my picks this week, I'm doing a pair of cards. There's a Spectria and Glastria. These are new variants from Lost Origin, and they both came out in recent products, but different product. The Spectria came out in the new Trick or Trade packs, which means it has the little pumpkin Pikachu in the corner. And then the Glastria came out in the Advent calendar, which means it has the Snowflake logo on it. And I think this is actually just a really nice pair of cards that go together. They're both the different horses that the different forms of Calyrex will ride within the game, and the fact that both of them came out around the same time for different holiday promos with different exclusive logos. I just think this is a very nice looking pair of cards to go together as a new release.
That's very cool. I know whatever one is the trick or treat one, it will never leave my hands because we know I don't give away any of my trick or treat cards. I just keep them all for myself. Yeah. But maybe the other one I'll actually, try to take a look at some point and add to the set. If it's part of the, and you know what I noticed, when you talk about that, you said it's part of the calendar thing. I did notice that it appears to me, I got my calendar, but I didn't open it, that the stamps on this year's 8 cards are all the same, right? Whereas last year it was just the Pikachu that had that same snowflake stamp and the other 7 were different. Am I correct?
No, I think the Pikachu had the same snowflake stamp as the other 7 last year. The thing was, it was just the Pikachu doesn't have an unstamped version. Last year there were 7 that had the snowflake stamp, where the snowflake stamp was a variant, and then the Pikachu was a fully exclusive promo. I think the Pikachu moved back in to fill a gap, because we talked a little bit before about how I think some of the Sword and Shield numbers moved to fill in gaps that would have been left by the cancelled Worlds promos
Yeah.
because of some getting released later. And I think Pikachu may have been one that jumped in and filled a slot. But that's the difference there. The stamp is the same. It's just that Pikachu isn't a variant. It's not a variant because of the stamp. It's just the only version of that card.
Okay. All right, Dan. Well, don't delete any of my inaccurate comments or statements or thoughts. Let them in so everybody knows what kind of idiocy they're welcome to watch every single Tuesday or Wednesday when you post a video.
Yeah, if I deleted all of your incorrect things you said about Pokemon, we'd have a 20-minute podcast every week. So we'll not
Yeah,
do
which
that.
isn't going to help your watch hours, but what is a completely accurate statement. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any Pokemon in the news lately?
All right, TCG in the news, where we talk about announcements of new products and stuff, or when there has been Pokemon-related stuff actually in news articles. Only thing to mention is they have announced that we are getting a new promo coming, which is an Oddish, which normally wouldn't be big news, but this is actually the Oddish from the new animated short that they've done. They've done a 4-part animated series. Pokemon's done it. It's available online to watch, called Path to the Peak, which is actually an anime about a girl playing the Pokemon TCG rather than the Pokemon anime where they exist within the Pokemon world. And the main card that she uses within this anime is an Oddish card, and it's an Oddish that doesn't actually exist as a physical card. There are a few different cards that pop up during that anime that don't actually exist as real cards, but they've announced that at least her Oddish, her main card, is going to get a physical printing as a promo, which I think is just it's a very nice one. They haven't said how we're going to get it yet, but they've just said that it is definitely coming.
That's a great story. I love that. I love the kind of notion of it's almost like a multiverse, like a Spider-Man in the multiverse, something where you're kind of crossing over from the show into reality, where the
Yeah.
cards are real, but they're not, but they're partially real, and she's kind of real. You know what I'm saying, Dan? Am I making any sense at all?
I get what you're saying. We've had real world cards that feature characters from the main anime because those characters, exist in the world of Pokemon. But then this new card game, she doesn't exist within the world of Pokemon. Pokemon is just a game for her. It's kind of, I guess, similar to animes like where with Yu-Gi-Oh! In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, they're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, even if the monsters come out of the cards. It's based around the fact that it does exist as a card game.
Okay, cool. And I've got something to talk about in the news as well,
Okay.
which I'm very excited about because what am I, 5 years old? Sure, I guess I'm 62 going on 6. The McDonald's set is supposed to be
Oh yeah.
coming starting next week, the September 12th, I think they said, because I know my son's favorite food is McDonald's, about the only thing he does eat. And so I can, it's a win-win when I send my wife out trying to buy him something and look for some of these toys and cards more than the toys. I want to read you something about it. So I'm really excited because you get a few cards in a pack, and I just, I don't even typically build my own set, but I just like to buy a few and act like I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
But Dan, I read this and I want to read it to you, and I want you to talk to me about what it means because once again, you've taught me so much in these series of podcasts that I didn't know just about the whole Japanese, then leading to the US cards and all the rest of it. So here's what it says. This was what somebody wrote on something I read. It says the full set list is as follows, and it lists out the 15 cards.
Yep.
And it says, oddly, Curlia is number 15 in the set when it should have been number 9. This is the one of the few times an English card has been misnumbered. And then there was someone that commented on that post, and here's what they wrote. Not the first time we've had misnumbered cards, although none are as extreme as the Curlia. We have one in Guardians Rising where Primarina GXRR comes before Alolan Ninetales GXRR. And more recently in Obsidian Flames, we have Absol XFA come before Charizard EXFA. Dan, I don't have, of course, I'm David Person, the owner of the most comprehensive English language Pokemon card in the world, and I have no idea what I just read to you. So,
Yeah.
what is this concept of things being out of order and the wrong numbering? What does this mean for people that are like me and don't know anything?
So the way sets are numbered now, back in the old days, they would do the hollows alphabetical, then the rares alphabetical, for Pokemon, then trainers at the end, that kind of thing. Now what they do is they do it by type, and then within the type, they do it by Pokedex number. So if you go through one of your set binders, it'll go grass, fire, water, lightning, psychic, fighting, dark, metal, dragon, colorless. And then within each type, it will go by Pokedex number. So if there's a Bulbasaur in a set, it's going to be number 1. It would go Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur. Only slight change to the Pokedex thing is when something has got an evolution in a further generation, they normally put the evolution line together, but that's the only difference. So if the Curlier is number 15 in the McDonald's set, that means it's numbered, after the colorless, when it should be numbered in with the psychic Pokemon. And Obsidian Flames, I actually don't know if it's a video I've posted yet, but one of my videos I've either posted or I have ready to edit and post. I mentioned about the Charizard and the Absol because the full art versions are switched. They're both dark types. Charizard is obviously very early in the Pokedex, and if you go to the main dark section, there's the Charizard, then there's some other cards, then there's the Absol. But in the full arts, the Absol is numbered before the Charizard, so they're out of order. It shouldn't be that way because it's supposed to follow that Pokedex order.
And any thoughts on why? Do you think it's something like oversights or after the fact things, or what would be your best speculation on why these anomalies occasionally occur like this?
So with something like Obsidian Flames and the Guardians Rising, where it's just 2 cards are switched, my best guess would be that it was just done by mistake. Someone had the set list wrong, or there was just some typo somewhere and it was fixed somewhere else. So with something like the Curlier, where it's number 15, where looking at the list, it should be number 8 by the looks of it. My best guess there is that they were potentially originally planning another colorless Pokemon who's numbered after Cyclizar, if there is one, and they were planning on having that be number 15, or potentially they were planning some sort of chase card for the McDonald's set where, it would be, maybe they were planning a special illustration rare or something, and then decided against it at the last minute, but because those first 14 cards were already set up and numbered, rather than having to change, 7 or 8 different cards and shift them all down, they just put one extra one at the end. That would be my best guess on that, just because of how drastic a change it is within the set list.
So Dan, if we wait for the corrections to these and then they get into the misprints in the Facebook group, they should be worth tens of thousands of dollars, right? When they finally do correct these in the sequencing order and that group gets a hold of them.
Well, they won't correct them, but there is.
But what
always...
if they don't? What if they don't correct them, but they come out as a crimp inside the inside? Okay, I can't make fun of the misprints group. That's just wrong. I'm just having fun, misprints group. We love you, and as long as you'll accept our videos in your group, we will love you so much more than we even should. Even more than you deserve to be loved.
I actually was going around McDonald's last night trying to find these because they've been out in parts of Europe for a while now, but yes. Some places in the US said that they got them last week, but nowhere around here did. I went to multiple McDonald's just to check if they got them yet, but they don't. They still have Nerf toys at the moment. I was told it was...
Dan, because you didn't learn your lesson from the Best Buys, right? When you went around there for 107 times and you tried to be early and there was nothing available. Let's just go 3 weeks before the McDonald's promotion and we'll just do some hopeful searching, right?
Well, we did it because other places had said they'd already got them. We'd already seen that some places in the US did put them out early, so I thought I'd check, and then I got to have a Big Mac when they didn't, so.
Okay. Good on the Big Mac thing, as long as they don't have any Hershey's chocolate in their shakes, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I have to get it without cheese, though, because that will also knacker my stomach.
I get it, my friend.
All right. Well, I think we are reaching the end of the podcast here. Just want to say, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Make sure you do follow us on all of the social medias. On Twitter, we are Coffee Talks Poke. On Instagram, which is our main one, I guess, we are Coffee Talks Podcast. TikTok, we're Coffee Talks Pokemon. There's nothing on TikTok yet. If you're listening to an audio-only version of this at some point way after we've recorded it, then you can see the video versions at youtube.com/DJGigabyte. DJ Gigabyte is most of my personal stuff you can find me on most social medias with that. David is either dperson1 or David Pokeperson, so be sure to look out for us there. David, what do you got to say for the ending of the podcast?
I just want to thank everybody, as always, for taking the time to watch. It means a lot. And we know you've got better things to do and other things to do with your time. So hopefully we can entertain a little bit for maybe an hour a week or a little bit longer. I will try to bring back the last Ferris Bueller type of segment soon as well. I've got some Pokemon friends that are actually in town in Vegas that I've got to go and meet with right now. So that's the reason I can't really do much more today. But we'll continue to bring back, and like I said, anybody that can continue to help us increase the audience on the stuff means a lot as well. Again, we're trying to do something special, and hopefully don't help me. I don't need any help except psychological, which my rants tell you more so than that. But let's help Dan, okay? It's like, this is kind of like the GoFundMe podcast for Dan. I don't know what we're funding him for. Definitely not for his hair coloring situations. But thanks for being with us this week, and we're going to keep laying it out. I got lots of big stuff coming. It's all takes a little longer than I think to materialize, but through the end of this month for sure, I've got folks actually traveling into town to hand deliver some stuff. So join us next week, and we'll keep the party rolling.
Yep, and next week we'll be seeing some Worlds promos. So
you got it for sure.
Exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, featuring music by More Than Never and artwork by Laura Norton. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to have a